Hi y'all, today we're going to be talking about the Nanite Systems Operatives, the fourth faction in PlanetSide 2 that is available to all players nowadays, and, most notably, freelances. So the Nanite Systems Operatives have been my main faction for almost the last 3 years now, and given it is by far the most underpopulated faction, I figured I'd kind of give an overview of everything, and if you're new, what to expect with NSO, and honestly whether you should be playing them or not. So, Nanite Systems' key feature is that they are freelance robots. This means that, for example, if I go to Esmir right now, I will be placed on the Terran Republic because the Terran Republic have the lowest continent population. Then I will fight for the Terran Republic until I enter a new continent, in which case I'll be dropped into the new lowest population faction. This is the core of how NSO works, and honestly it's the main reason to play NSO, if you want different experiences and you just want to have fights, because you'll always be playing for the underpopulated faction. If you are a member, you can choose to align yourself to a faction, basically making yourself a discount soldier of that empire, and yeah, you'll just always be with that faction, which in my opinion is a waste of time. I wouldn't pay for NSO because ultimately the best part of NSO is always being able to play on the underpopulated faction and just enjoy good fights without ever having to worry about a continent queue. You know, if you're freelancing, you will never have a queue unless a continent's actually full, which doesn't happen that much anymore, especially on Connor. So, I would honestly consider paying to play NSO not worth it. Ultimately, NSO just aren't strong enough as a faction themselves, and aligning yourself permanently to a faction takes out the reason to play NSO. Because, here's the thing, okay? If you align yourself to a faction, you do become a discount soldier. You will be able to join their outfits, you will be able to do all your normal faction things. If you are freelance and you are not paying membership on your NSO character, you will not have an outfit. That's one of the big features of NSO as well with freelancing. You will pretty much not have a community unless you're already playing with the group and you happen to luck onto their faction if it's the underpop one. And this is both a blessing and a curse. Because what this means is that, at its core, because of the way the faction is designed, NSO is predominantly for solo players who play in small groups with their friends. How much you'd like this largely depends on your own personal playstyle. Personally, I love this. I pretty much only play this game for good fights and to grind directives. I haven't ever really seriously played in outfits or squads, and I just prefer to play by myself. Which makes NSO perfect for me because it's just, here's the continent, go shoot people, you're underpop. But if you decide to pay and you align yourself to a faction, you're basically just going to always be asking yourself, why am I not just playing NC, TR, VS instead? Because all of their arsenals are significantly better, bigger, and more fun to use. So NSO does have their own unique set of gear, and most of it is ultimately not that good, ranging to some of the worst equipment in the game. In a nutshell, for each weapon class, the scout rifles are okay, saved by the A50, the sniper rifles are all absolute junk, the pistols are pretty good, the carbines are kinda okay with one extreme standout, the shotguns are so-so with one good standout, the assault rifles all stink, and the LMGs have one okay weapon and the rest stink. Pretty much the entire infantry lineup here is just mediocre. There's probably 5 truly good guns on this faction, and only one of them is certable. The other 4 are all directive rewards, which means that if you're not playing to get directive weapons, you're going to feel pain, because you're just not going to have a great weapon lineup, and you don't have a big one. You really only have 3 weapons per class that's actually unique to NSO. Outside of that, you better like your NS common pools, because you're going to be using them a lot. Compare this to, say, the other factions which have like 7 to 8 unique carbines, you have 3 on NSO, and you're going to feel this pretty much at all times. You do not have a versatile arsenal, and ultimately, you're going to feel constricted for weapon choices, because you're going to be limited to 1, maybe 2 good, actually decent weapons per class, and it doesn't feel very good to use. In addition, a lot of their weapons are not mechanically unique or offer interesting features, outside of a handful like the line cutter, the anti-material rifle, and that's about it. Most weapons here just feel like slightly changed versions of Vanu weapons, actually, and outside of having long max damage range as their main trait, generally you'll find better weapons elsewhere. Although, NSO does have a unique max unit, a unique tank, and a unique aircraft. The Defector is your unique max, and it is honestly pretty much never worth pulling. It's not bad, but it doesn't do a whole lot besides soak up damage, which it doesn't do as good as the other max units because it has less health, and farm doorways with a grenade printer, which isn't as effective as most of the other faction weapons. Ultimately, the Defector doesn't really bring anything to the table, as its weapons are not particularly good, it dies easily, its abilities aren't very useful, and in general, there's actually little reason to pull a Defector in 95% of situations. Which again begs the question, if you're here to play the dumb Defector max unit, you're better off on the other three factions where the maxes are all considerably better. Your main battle tank is a Chimera. It's a weird armored car APC thing. It's okay, but it's probably the weakest of the four main battle tanks nowadays. Ultimately, the fact that it did not get a weapon when they added the new tank weapons has really, really hurt it, and it was already big suffering to begin with. It doesn't have a whole lot of hit points, though it does have slightly more than the Lightning and the Mag Rider, and its guns are just okay. Its front turret placement doesn't have a top gun like the other tanks, which means your front gun is severely limited. It's okay, it's really easy to kill, and the fact that it has wheels means that you can't turn on the spot, meaning you react really, really poorly to getting flanked, because you'll have to turn all the way around, to which point the enemy's already shot you up. So if you're tanking, you're better off playing NC or TR, or if you have the skills, Vonu with the Mag Rider. It's just not a very strong tank. I like it, it's kind of fun, but it's not a very strong tank, and it's not worth playing the faction for. Your unique aircraft is the Dervish, and honestly the Valkyrie is a better general-purpose aircraft and is better at air-to-air combat. The Dervish is junk. It is a giant flying pancake that handles like a brick. The guns on it are just okay. I mean, the charge-up weapon on the top is really fun if you learn how to aim it, but you're still stuck on a really, really bad airframe. It's a heavy fighter concept taken to its max, although it doesn't do enough damage to justify its extremely poor maneuverability, and you'll be pretty much shot out of the sky by any competent pilot. In addition, you are a huge target for Daltons on Liberators, and in general you just kind of explode. There's not really a whole lot of reason to ever pull the Dervish because it just doesn't do anything. In addition, it does not get specialized air-to-ground anti-infantry weapons, so if you're purely looking to farm infantry, it's completely useless because you're just going to have to farm with your nose gun. Again, there's little reason to ever pull this thing, and the other factions outclass it severely. Are you beginning to notice the trend here with NSO? Sure, a lot of the gear here is relatively unique in the way of vehicles, and even the Defector is a little bit more unique compared to the other max units, but they're not good. They're fun to kind of like mess around with an alt on to like maybe BR20, but realistically, you'll soon, unless you're here to do one specific thing, you're soon to just go back to your normal factions. And that one specific thing is grind directives. If you are a directive grinder, or if you just like grinding directives in general, I would honestly call it the perfect faction for this. Because you're always playing for the underpop faction if you're freelance, you always have the most targets to shoot. Sure, the weapons here are pretty but the directive weapons are actually interesting. They actually make substantial changes on their standard versions. So for example, let's take the Butcher for example. It is essentially a Carve that has a bigger magazine and a slightly faster fire rate. It's still a lot like a Carve. The Galilei, by comparison, the NSO's directive light machine gun, actually turns the gun from a 714 at 143 to a 750 at 143 and basically makes it into a budget Orion. In addition, you have other stuff like the Shotgun Directive rewarding this weird mix of a thumper and a pump action, and it's really interesting. They have interesting directive rewards, but honestly a lot of them are still not that good. But if you really, really like grinding directives, I honestly do believe it is the best faction to grind them on. But outside of that, there is very, very little reason to ever pick up playing NSO seriously, because if you want to play with your friends, just play a regular faction. Don't bother paying, because you're just now stuck with shitty equipment no matter what you do. If you just want to actually spend a lot of time with the Defector, the Chimera, or the Dervish, don't. They're all junk, and you'll honestly experience everything you need to experience within an hour or two of using each of them. They don't really offer anything unique, and what they do offer unique in the case of the Dervish is exploding. I wouldn't waste your time on them. Which, again, leaves our only purpose here in the directives. So if you really, really like directive grinding, NSO is the perfect place for you. Oh, and if you have no friends and you really like directive grinding, NSO is perfect. Other than that, I cannot genuinely recommend them to pretty much any player outside of making a low alt on them just to mess out with some of their equipment. It's just not really worth your time. Thanks all, and I will see you again another time. Bye.